Hello and welcome to round number 3 of the Wayports Racing League second season, Division 1, the Westhill Grand Prix. I'm Peter Butcher, and joining me in the commentary box once again for this round 3 is Adam Brown. Hi, Adam.
Hello, Pete. Yeah, this is going to be an awesome little round. We've got one of the more recent updated tracks in Live for Speed. It's looking awesome, and it's a brilliant little combo here with lots of challenges, but it should be great for a bit of racing.
Yeah, absolutely excellent track for the drivers to get their teeth into this evening. We have a little bit of an update for you in terms of the calendar. So today, round 3 from Westhill National. Then next week we're off to Blackwood GP, Fernbay Green after that, Aston Club, Blackwood Rallycross, Fernbay Gold, Blackwood GP reversed, and Kyoto. Back to Kyoto for round 10, Adam. So kind of full circle in the end. But today, Westhill National, the drivers have had plenty of practice at this track. It was part of the calendar for season 1. Andy, for strings, yet again, has been doing a lot of practice. And maybe, Adam, you can tell the audience just how much practice Andy's been up to.
Well, bearing in mind this track is about double the length of Aston Cadet last time around, Andy's done over 200 laps on Thursday alone. So that's about the 400 that he did last week. But on top of that, because we did this combo last season, he's had loads of practice laps stacked up from there. So he's got over 500 laps of experience on this track. So we should be looking out for some quality times from him.
Yeah, it's a staggering amount, really, around this 10-corner track, 4.4 kilometres, 2.7 mile fictional racetrack in Live for Speed. Qualifying is underway for 10 minutes. We will bring you pictures of that in just a couple of moments' time. And then at 2:15 UTC, we will get going for 11 laps around this track, and it should be awesome. Adam, tell us a little bit about the car again.
Yeah, so XFG, as we say, is one of the demo cars inside the simulator we're using here today, Live for Speed. It's got a 1.3 litre inline-4 engine. It's basically your standard road car, little hatchback, and it's only 115 brake horsepower. It's a decent little beast. It very good racing. It's, even though it's slow, you can drive very close to other drivers and still not lose any time. It's a quality car to get used to racing in.
Well, we have some drivers driving around the track at the moment. No times on the board, but we're going to bring you pictures of the action and see who's setting the timing screens alight as they come around on their first timed lap. Adam, who are we watching?
Well, I think Andy from Strings is going to be the first to set a time. I noticed he was a little bit wide coming out of that turn 8 little hairpin. This corner is incredibly challenging. You've got to watch out for the curb on the inside and watch it doesn't throw you out. Got to have it. Oh,
yeah, a couple of cars having an excursion. So really pushing on this first lap. People, into this hairpin again. William from Interlink running wide and off the circuit. So we may see some drivers pushing the limits there, as we have the two Strings cars at the lead of this first pack coming round to set their times. Here's Ian again struggling. Drivers really struggling in this qualifying session. There may be some wind to contend with out there. Maybe a tailwind that they're just not used to. Anyway, Adam, here comes Andy, the man who has done the most practice of anybody for the last 2 or 3 rounds at least, across the line to set the opening time of a 2-minute 6.7. That's quite quick.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that he also went wide through the turn 8 hairpin, so there's definitely a lot more time on the table for him. As we see, Mariano, who maybe didn't make such a mistake, has topped his time by just over a tenth. So
Mariano went ahead by the slimmest of margins. Santiago, Andy's teammate, P3, Eduardo P4, and Valentina for Interlink France, Mariano's teammate, currently in P5 and some way off the pace because she went off at that hairpin. So needing to get some laps in, and we're already halfway through the qualifying session. Remember that this track is about just under twice the length of last week, Adam. So we end up with way fewer laps being able to be set in qualifying.
Yeah, in terms of time, it is just around double the length. But in terms of length, it's almost 3 times the length of Aston Cadet, the track we were at last week.
Yeah, because we've got far more straights here. Aston Cadet is made up of corners, hairpins, and chicanes, whereas we only have a couple of hairpins here.
Yeah.
Mariano's navigating one of those now, and he did it pretty well. A lot better than some of the other drivers did on the opening lap.
Yeah, due to the fact that there are a lot of straights, drivers will have to be very careful on the exit of these corners going onto the straight. So Andy has obviously just gone through turn 9, and he had a little bit of a slide coming out of it, so he's not going to be as fast through this uphill straight as he maybe would have hoped, which will put a lot of loss on that time. You can gain a lot of time by being super clean around some of these corners.
Yeah, I reckon Andy will probably be setting up for another lap. We will ride on board with Andy and show you a lap around Westhill National. It's a great little track this. Here comes the long start-finish straight. Downhill initially, then it levels out, and then you go uphill as you cross start-finish. Here comes Andy. Will it be an improvement on this lap? It is. He goes 0.4 of a second ahead of Mariano, 2 minutes 6.15. That's faster than he set in practice earlier today. Turn number 1.
Yeah, turn number 1, beautiful, almost flat. Incredible. Got watch on the exit there. Watch you don't run over any grass. This is a almost fourth gear. Yeah, as he changes down halfway around the corner. Again, not quite flat. Coming down through turn 3 now. Very challenging downhill left-hander. You've got to keep it close to that apex so you can run it wide on the exit. And braking while you're turning into turn 4, very downhill, tricky braking zone. Now you want to be on the throttle as much as possible around this turn 5 and 6 section through here. Turn 7 should be flat out. As just noticed that Mariano set exactly the same time as Andy while while we're watching Andy's lap. This was the hairpin that people were struggling to brake for, as again we see Andy's a tad wide. It's not incredibly far wide, but you will want to be tighter around there so you can get the car fully into the apex. Andy using a bit of trail braking just to keep the car stable down through the downhill of turn 9 onto this very crucial back straight going up towards turn 10. Turn 10's an interesting double apex corner. In some cars you want to keep it quite wide, but in the XFG and the slower cars you're definitely better off keeping it tight so you can take as short a distance around the corner as possible. Although Andy does run it quite wide through the exit of the first apex, but make sure it's tightened up by the second apex as he runs downhill onto the start finish straight. This looks like a decent lap.
Yeah, besides that tiny mistake in the infield, let's see what it is. It is an improvement, and he's the first driver in the 5s. 2:05.55. That's a massive margin over Mariano. Andy has just thrown down a huge gauntlet, 0.6 of a second separating pole from second place. With 1 minute left in the session, Mariano and Andy will both get one more lap time. But wow, Andy, he is certainly got up to speed with his new equipment. Mariano is going to be quaking in his boots if he can't get anywhere near. He set the same lap time on the previous attempt, but now Andy's like, I'm just gonna go a lot faster. 0.6 of a second, that's huge. We have a race on our hands.
Yeah, well, hopefully it'll be a race. Hopefully Andy won't fire off up the road, because Mariano's time on that last lap was over a second slower than Andy's.
Yeah, so Andy is such an attacking driving style. I've mentioned it in previous broadcasts that Mariano seems to be a lot smoother. Andy is so much more aggressive, but that might be Andy's downfall later in the race, because if you remember the final corner of the lap that we were on board with, he was full lock left and the fronts were screaming in pain. So he's really attacking his qualifying laps. He can't afford to do that for 11 laps during the race.
Yeah, that's great that you've mentioned that, because just looking at his tires in the little tire menu we get here on Live for Speed, his front right is pretty hot. You wouldn't want that to be getting any hotter at all for Andy. So yeah, it's definitely something he needs to be careful of.
Yep, certainly. It's okay to do that in qualifying. It's not okay to do that in the race. The clock has hit 0. We're watching Mariano for Interlink France, the only driver that looks likely to be able to displace Andy for Strings from pole position as he breaks down into the final corner. Much tighter line for Mariano. Runs it wide out to the curb and then back to the apex for the exit. As we head on to start finish, this will be Mariano's final attempt. Can he close that gap? It's 0.6 of a second. It's huge. It's one of the biggest margins we've seen in recent times in the series. Across start finish, no
He's not
improvement.
managed it. Yeah, obviously, again for him, the tyres maybe were getting a little too hot on this final lap. So maybe, despite the fact that we've got a lot of straight lines here, maybe tyres could be a big issue in the race. Maybe quite unforeseen for some of these drivers.
Yeah, so Andy needs to get a good start. He needs to pull away initially with his superior pace as we watch Valentina aborting this lap, I think, into pit lane. Only a couple of drivers left to set times. I think Eduardo may just have made it across start finish as he goes into the gravel. So I think Eduardo won't be improving on this lap time. So Ian is our final car that will maybe improve on this lap. Ian currently in P6 as he breaks into the final corner. I love the look of that Bundles livery, don't you, Adam?
Yeah, all the liveries really looking quite fantastic. The Strings one, especially with the deep purple, quite a nice looking livery.
On to start finish comes Ian. Let's see, can he improve? He's 6 seconds off pole at the moment, and he improves by almost a second on that lap. So good effort, and that is qualifying. Let's see. Let's do a full rundown of the order and take a short break before we head to the racing action. So it is Andy for Strings on pole position, followed by Mariano for Interlink France. And yeah, this is quite a race we have in prospect, Adam. Santiago for Strings in P3, quite close to Mariano, only half a second in it. Valentina in P4 for Interlink France in the end. Eduardo for Interlink Argentina P5. Ian for Bundles P6. And William for Interlink Brazil in P7. So yes, this is quite a void at the front. This is quite a shock for us. Andy was he had awesome pace in qualifying last week, Adam, if you remember. But
Yeah.
Mariano was still able to win. I don't know. Mariano's going to have to pull out something special to be able to do that here today.
Yeah, I mean, after I would call it a disaster for Andy last race. He was way faster through practice, but he will have definitely been working on his consistency over this past week. So if he can make sure to sort of iron out the mistakes, this could be a relatively easy race for him.
I'm really interested to see how he can manage his tyres because he, like I said, he cannot push that hard in the race. It's absolutely not going to work for him. And we will find out very soon. Yeah, Mariano, he's going to have to nail his stop. He's going to have to do one of his speciality, really quick pit stops, and that is pretty much it. He's going to be worried by that pace. Can Andy get the consistency he needs? Can he keep his front tyres cool? We will find out in just a few moments. Join us after the break. Hello and welcome back to Wayports Racing League Season 2, Round 3 from Westhill Grand Prix inside Live for Speed. We've just had a very interesting qualifying session, Adam, and yeah, let's refresh ourselves of that running order.
Yeah, so on pole, we've got Andy from Strings, I think setting the biggest gap that we've had the whole season, back to Mariano in second. It's a 6/10 gap there. And third, we've got Santiago from Strings. Fourth, Valentina from Interlink France. Fifth, Eduardo. Sixth, Ian from Bundles. And William from Interlink Brazil. That's the grid, and the lights are already going out for the start of this race.
Here are our front runners as we go green for round 3 of the championship. The 7 drivers begin their way down to turn number 1. Andy got a great getaway there, Adam. His teammate also. It's Strings on the left and Interlink France on the right as we head up to turn number 1. And who's going to get there first? It looks like Andy's got a great lead. This is what he needed at the beginning of this race.
Contact in the background looks like Valentina is into the gravel, I believe. Yes. I'm not sure quite what happened there. I think someone tried to go up the inside, and maybe there wasn't enough space given.
So, drama at the back, and that's bad news for Valentina because she has a lot of work to do to catch up to the top three where she needs to be for the points in the team's championship as we head around the first corner.
Well, yeah, it's not just bad news for Valentina. It's bad news for Mariano because it looks like it's going to be a very good result from strings as long as these guys can keep it clean. Already a bit of a gap from Andy back to Mariano. Although, due to the nature of this circuit, you might be able to draft back past someone.
Yeah, so Santiago's got a lot of work to do to try and catch up to Interlink, the Interlink driver of Mariano. This is exactly what Santiago needs to do. He needs to play the team game and ensure as many points as possible for their team. Very quickly up the back straight, we will tell you how that currently looks as those drivers make their way up the home straight. We have Mariano in the lead in the championship, Andy in second place, and he's looking to really make those moves count today to move himself up the points table. Ian for Bundles P3, Santiago for Strings in P4, Valentina for Interlink France in 5th currently in the championship, and there the rest of the top 10 representing. In the team's championship, it is a similar story. At the front, we have Interlink France leading the way ahead of Strings, Bundles, Interlink Argentina, and Interlink Brazil. As we have the first lap completed here, Adam, of the race.
Yeah, I think it must have been Ian from Bundles who went into Valentina because Ian is traipsing around at the back with a lot of damage on his car.
Yeah, but Ian, again, this is not the first time we've seen this. I think every round this season, Ian has picked up damage very, very early in the race, and that is a lot. He's again struggling with rear track damage. He will most likely want to get that in the pit lane if he wants to enjoy the 10 laps he's got in this race remaining, as Andy is absolutely flying away at the front, and Santiago is close. He's really close.
Yes, Santiago is keeping right on the back of Mariano. Andy is just flown away. I mean, I'm not sure. Santiago was a wee bit slower than Mariano all the way through qualifying and practice, but if he can keep the tires clean, this could end up being quite close by the end of it.
Yeah, now Santiago chooses kind of an alternate practice strategy to the other drivers. Santiago does not normally do online practice with the rest of the drivers during the week. He does them offline on his own, and as such, none of the drivers really know what Santiago's pace is going to be, and that is a fun one. And Mariano will be looking in his rearview mirror thinking, all right, well, you just stay there. I need to focus on Andy, as we have Ian in the pit lane to serve his mandatory mandatory pit stop in the race. And that looks like quite a long one, Adam, as he repairs that damage.
Yeah, just going back to Santiago, the fact that he's done the offline practice does mean that he keeps his cards close to his chest, essentially. He's keeping his times to himself. But it also means that he doesn't really have any experience racing round the track, you know. In practice, you get a bit of a chance to drive with other drivers and to see how that feels. But if you do it by yourself, you're missing out on that opportunity.
Yeah, as Andy sets the fastest lap, Andy and Mariano always like to have a scrap in the practice sessions. And yeah, you're right, Adam. You absolutely need to practice battling with the other drivers in the championship during practice.
Andy has just gone off. Sorry to interrupt you. Andy has hit the grass on the exit of turn 1 and he's gone into the barrier. Luckily, I think he's gotten away without too much damage. There might be a bit of
There's some damage on the front right. Yeah. That is drama. We've just cut away to the battle with William and Valentina, which is still going on. But let's keep an eye on Andy for now, as William goes off at turn 1 again. Maybe similar. You can see the skid marks on the road. That must have been from where Andy's lost the car. William Beckhauser almost doing exactly the same thing. But crucially, Valentina back up to P5. And with Andy clearly with an issue, that's going to have rattled Andy, I think. He will be kicking himself. He's done so much practice. I wonder how many times he crashed there in practice. Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah, his second lap and his last lap, which is the fastest lap of the race, was faster than any of times that Mariano or Santiago did in qualifying.
Yeah, as long as he
So-
doesn't do that again, he should be okay, because it does look like the damage is just cosmetic. It's literally just to the bodywork. There's no suspension or tracking damage or anything. So as long as Andy can keep it clean, as he does hook the curb there on the outside of turn number 9, he's got a lot of time to catch up now. What is that? 4 seconds almost to Santiago now. Sorry, Mariano. But Mariano again, he's consistent, and that's what you need in order to win these races.
Yeah, I mean, as we were saying in the build-up, it was Andy's consistency that let him down last time around, and well, we have to wait and see. But it could be what let him down this time around.
Well, Santiago will be pretty happy. He's in P2. He might not be so happy that his teammate is behind him. Ian's in the pits again with. It's a drive-through penalty that he picked up from his previous pit stop for speeding in the pit lane. So Ian has to make a second journey through pit lane, and that means that he's been lapped by the top 3, and it's only lap 4. Not the way Ian expected his afternoon to go at all. Mariano leads for Interlink France from Santiago and Andy from Strings. Andy crashing on the beginning of lap number 3, and yeah, not the way he wanted that lap to go at all.
I wonder if Andy does start to catch Santiago. I wonder if there'll be any team orders. Will Santiago just let him on by and let him catch Mariano, or will we see a little battle, inter-team battle going on there?
Well, I hope we see a battle, but at the moment, it doesn't look like Andy is setting the timing screens alight. The others are gapping him. The gap is over 4 seconds now to Mariano, so Andy is rattled a little bit, and he needs to try and tighten up those lines, settle back into a rhythm, because he's still got 15 minutes or so left of this race, and that is quite a lot of time to chip away at the times ahead. Remember, Andy was 0.6 of a second faster than Mariano on his qualifying lap, and with the number of laps remaining, if you do the maths, it should be enough. But he has to set perfect laps every single lap, and so does Mariano if he wants to stay in the lead.
Yeah, the first sector there for Andy was half a second slower than the guys in front. Obviously, as you say, totally rattled, but I don't understand what's happened to his pace, because his tires are totally fine.
Well, again, after you have a big accident, it is very frustrating, and sometimes you have to really shake yourself to get back into a rhythm. Let's see. It's been a couple of laps now. Can Andy start to bring those times back down? Lots and lots of lock on through the final corner again for Andy, but his teammate does appear to be gapping him still. We'll get an update at the line as to how he is getting on. But yeah, Santiago, he's doing a good job. There they come across the line. And it does appear as though the gap to the front has gone up. So Mariano is dropping the 2 Strings drivers. The gap is now 3.27 seconds. And there you can see the top 3 on your screen as Mariano heads through turn number 2. We have said this in the past, Adam, that Mariano does come into his own in the race. Qualifying is not his thing, and he said that himself in an interview earlier in the season. Mariano does tend to get into a rhythm in the race and set his really, really best times in the race, and that's what he needs to do. It doesn't really matter if you qualify alongside the guy on pole, as long as you keep your race nice and clean and you win. It doesn't matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there is a point for pole position. So Andy, it's not like it's the end of the world that he's maybe not as good in the race, but you'd still there's far more points than for coming first than there are for coming second with the pole position. So
that is a good point, no pun intended, because there's also a point for fastest lap, which he currently holds. So that's 2 points extra on Mariano already, but he wants to be in P2 or 1. He doesn't want to be in P3 because there's fewer points available for that position. He is catching Santiago now, though, visibly. You can see that gap has come down to less than 2 seconds. So let's see, can Andy start to chip away time? First of all, he needs to get past his teammate. Obviously, that's important. then he can focus on the fast charging Mariano ahead. I reckon Mariano really wants that fastest lap of the race, though. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think he does, but it's already a really difficult time to beat Andy's set on the second lap. So if he does it, all credit to him, but it's going to be a hard task, as it looks like Andy's
pitting.
going into the pits.
Yeah, he's going in the pit lane. So this is an early stop. Maybe he thought, okay, I'm catching up to the back of Santiago. I do not want to battle with my teammate. I'm going to go and pit. Now, if Andy repairs that damage, it's bad news. And he hasn't. He's left the damage on the car, which means that the pit stop will be quick. There he goes. Straight in and straight out. 3.2 seconds, that pit stop. And he is back on his way. Needs to be careful to keep the car under the 80 kilometer an hour, 50 mile an hour pit lane speed limit. And he does. Back out onto the track. And he will be in a battle with Ian. Might not be what he wants, as Ian actually backs out of it. He doesn't want to get involved with Andy. Knows maybe that he's a bit faster. Ian is also a lap down because he pitted twice. Well, pitted and then served a drive-through, which dropped him behind the leaders. So Ian doing the wise thing and keeping out of Andy's way, as Andy goes very wide through turn 2.
Yeah, sensible decision there from Ian. He doesn't want to affect the battle for the lead, and he shouldn't. He's a lap behind, and he's not really racing anyone at the moment.
Yeah, that's good news for Andy. He would not want to have been battling with a backmarker, certainly, especially considering that the battle he is interested in is this one. Santiago is chasing Mariano. Wouldn't it be great if Santiago could catch up and get involved with Mariano, and we'd have a three-way fight for the win with 6 laps remaining in this race?
Well, he definitely is gaining on Mariano. He's obviously, I think he might be pushing a little bit harder. Of course, variances in the setup. To me, it looks like Mariano has a little more camber on his car, which will mean that the inside of his tires warm up a bit more than the middle of his tires, whereas it looks to me like the Strings cars have quite even wear on their tires. So this could be interesting, because Mariano's tires could be going before any of the Strings cars' tires go.
Yeah, I mean, they do race simulation testing in practice. I'm sure Mariano knows that his setup can make it. But yeah, it just turns out how long whose tyres will be more alive at the end, as William serves his pit stop and makes his way out onto the track once again. Now a lap down, the Interlink Brazil driver.
Yeah, Andy is a whole straight behind the two leaders. Obviously, a pit stop, as they aren't repairing anything or putting any more fuel in or changing the tires, the pit stop doesn't cost that much time, maybe only about 20 seconds or so, which in these cars that aren't the fastest things in a straight line, it only takes up the front straight in that 20 seconds.
Here's the gap between the P1 and P2, pretty close, 2.5 seconds. Santiago needs to tighten up his lines a little bit and try and get that gap down. He needs to play the team game. He needs to catch up to Mariano and make Mariano's rear view mirror as full of that grey and purple livery as possible, because Andy will want to get involved in this fight towards the end. Andy has clear track, of course, and that always helps when you are trying to kind of settle into a rhythm and find as much time as possible. So yeah, Andy still has the fastest lap, and he's not lapping slowly out there at all.
Yeah, definitely. He's obviously had got a chance to get a bit of clean air and just put some decent laps in. As in front of him, also Eduardo in the barriers.
Yeah, Valentino and Eduardo have come together, and that got in the way of a couple of our drivers, I think. But yeah, we've seen. We've missed a few weird contacts happening with some competitors, and it looks like Eduardo's managed to get past Valentina, or
as
vice
I'm
versa.
Sorry to interrupt you, Pete. Mariano had a little bit of an issue through turn 10. That's let Santiago catch right up, and he's going into the pits.
Okay, he's lost a chunk of time to Santiago. So Santiago, with that momentum, if Santiago pits next lap, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up ahead. Even if his pit stop's the same, because he had so much more momentum coming onto the straight. Let's see. Mariano pulls into his pit box, And it's a quick one yet again for Mariano, 1.9
Yeah,
seconds, so 2 seconds quicker, pretty much, than
that
Andy.
looked far faster than Andy's pit stop. Had a much faster exit. So let's see. This is going to be very close because Andy has all that momentum from the straight. Looks to me like Mariano might stay ahead. We'll see on the exit of turn 1. Andy really chucks it in there.
Going to be side by side if he thinks about going for a move. Andy had to navigate William Beckhauser, the back marker, but now nose to tail, the leaders again. This is what we saw last week, and contact. That was really aggressive.
A very optimistic move up the inside, and Mariano wanted none of that and basically pushed him right to the edge of the track. That was a tricky one to call there, but Andy has come out ahead of that. Mariano got sent into the gravel there.
Yeah, and that means that Santiago will undoubtedly be ahead of Mariano.
Santiago's got problems.
Oh, what's happened?
He's run out of fuel. Santiago's run out of fuel.
So he's forgotten to pit and he's out of the race. So Santiago, after being in almost the perfect position to win because of these two coming together, has run out of fuel. That's a disaster. That's a really bad
Andy's going slow as
miscalculation.
well. It looks like Andy's waiting for Mariano to let him back past because obviously he was under the impression that he took him out of the race.
Okay, well, that's very sporting of Andy. And yeah, now that he's let him through, he needs to get back past legitimately on the road. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Really unfortunate for Santiago, though, to run out of fuel.
So everything's happened here on lap 8 as Mariano goes wide into the grass. This is going to give Andy a run down into the last corner, turn 10. It's quite a good opportunity to overtake and defend. There are very varying lines into this final corner, but it looks like Andy might be passed before they even get into the braking zone.
Yeah, Andy is in the lead on our timing tower, but Mariano has the inside line. Will they come together again? Oh, it's close. There's almost contact, but Mariano keeps his resolve and gets back ahead at the apex. These two are going to be fighting to the death to the end of the race, I think. Andy's just outside the slipstream down the home straight, and here we go again. Will Andy try the same move into turn 2? This lap he'll have less momentum, so I'm not sure he'll be able to do it.
Yeah, doesn't look like he'll be able to do it into turn 1 this time around. It definitely isn't an overtaking opportunity anyway into this first corner. It's almost flat out, and it's very, very dangerous to try and stick one up the inside. As these guys are getting close to each other up at the front, interesting to hear in the podcast last week, episode 2 of the podcast, that these guys have had a rivalry going back 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely. They met on Grand Prix 2 in 2001. Unbelievable. And yeah, 20 years later, they're still racing together in Live for Speed. So quite the partnership. As Andy gets the infield all wrong, he was really close to Mariano, and he's just cutting all the corners. He's really shaken at the moment, is Andy. He's just not able to get the line that he needs through this infield, and that gap has shot up again. Mariano, he's a cheeky devil, isn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Andy hadn't let him pass and it had gone to, say, a protest or an after-race scrutiny. Yeah, I'm not sure if that contact will have given Andy a penalty, because to me, it looked like it was kind of a racing incident. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it was definite side-to-side contact. Either driver could have left a bit more room. Yeah, Andy was well alongside at the corner, but I think it's possible that, we'd have to watch it back to get in. Andy clearly thought that it was a bit dirty and let him through, and that's that. It's done. Let's focus on the racing and see if Andy can get that gap down. At the line, we will have 2 laps to go, and it's been another thriller here as Santiago and Eduardo both rejoined the race after various incidents. And yeah, but that promotes Valentina for Interlink France up to P3 in the race. So Valentina is back where she belongs, back where she started.
It is very interesting to note that Valentina has quite a lot of damage from that contact we saw earlier, and she's also got a stop and go penalty because she sped in the pit lane. Normally you would only get a drive through for speeding in the pit lane, but obviously she's gone way over the speed limit. Maybe she didn't get it slowed down in time or something like that.
I think I'm going to
So
make a guess at what's happened to that car. I think that car has been on its roof. I think it's rolled over. That damage is characteristic of a car having been not on its wheels for certainly some period of the race. Valentina has an enormous gap to the cars behind. William is quite a long way behind, so she should be able to serve this stop-go penalty, get out back in the race, and be still in P3, I think.
yeah, of course, while you're serving a stop-go penalty, you won't be able to do anything to your car while you're doing the penalty.
Yep.
So she missed the box. Sorry to, we don't have it on the screen, but she did a bit of a rookie mistake, let's say. I mean, even if you aren't a rookie, you find some people do miss their pit
It's
box.
easily done. Back to our lead battle, 1.8 seconds the gap between Mariano and Andy, and we have, after the next corner, 1 lap to go. Andy really needs to send everything at this, else he's going to be pipped at the post by Mariano once again. And I would sorely love for Andy to get his first win of the season, to be honest, because, well, he's put so much effort into practice recently, and it's just not gone his way. Let's see, 1 lap to go.
Well, yeah, the gap looks as though it's just under a second, and it looks like Andy's was about a second faster this lap. So,
okay,
if Andy can do the same time and Mariano does the same time, we could be looking at an overtake into the final corner. So this could be a very grandstand finish, very good end to this race.
Yeah, last lap he was 1.7 seconds faster than Mariano, and this lap it looks like he has taken another few tenths off of him, and the gap is 1.46 at the line. So if Andy can go a second and a half quicker and get past, that will be one heck of a way to finish the round. He hasn't made it easy for himself again, but let's see. 1 lap to go, and we're through turn 2 already. 8 to go. Mariano needs to just hold his composure. He's doing everything he needs to right now. The consistency of the Interlink France driver really on show here.
Yeah, Andy faster through that first split, but I don't think it's fast enough. Still a considerable gap as he takes quite a lot of the inside curb at turn 5.
Yeah, absolutely not the way to take that corner. You will lose time doing that. You don't gain any by cutting that one.
Obviously, really just grasping for these final straws, and obviously some of them aren't, it's some of the things that he's doing aren't going to give him the extra time that he needs.
Yeah, the corners are running out. We have 2 corners to go. Andy for strings, it looks like he's going to have to forget about this round again and focus on the next one as he runs wide under the bridge. And Mariano for Interlink France has 1 corner remaining. He has got this corner wrong once already in this race, if you remember, while Santiago was following. But he can fall off the track probably and still walk away. The gap nearly 2 seconds. Let's see. 1 more corner for Mariano. Yeah, absolutely no issues. Perfectly on the edge of the track there. And onto the home straight for Mariano to surely take the 3rd win from 3. The lights are already flashing as the number 1 car, the champion of Season 1, Mariano for Interlink France, comes across the line to make it 3 from 3 in Wayports Racing League Season 2. Andy for strings has to settle for 2nd once again. He must be kicking himself. What happened, Andy? I'm sure we'll find out in the interviews. It's going to be a bit of a wait. We've got Valentina in that misshapen XFG. I'd love to know what's happened. Valentina, if she can get the car round, will finish on the podium. We will see what goes on. We've got some cars finishing a couple of, a lap down. Ian will come across the line to finish P4 overall, but he is a lap down. William for Interlink Brazil will follow Ian through to finish P5. But let's turn our attention to Valentina, who will be taking, if I'm not mistaken, her first podium of the season, Adam.
Yeah, I think it is. We had a different podium of race 1, and I think she had some issues in race 2. Obviously, she's had some issues today, but people around her have obviously had even bigger issues.
Yeah, this is one of the most broken cars I've ever seen in my life crossing the line here. As yeah, let's see, can Valentina navigate this final corner? Santiago apparently has run out of fuel again after rejoining the race, so some issues there with setup for Santiago. Oh no, he's driven again, so it's fine. That would have been quite amusing if he'd have run out again. Here comes Valentina around the final corner, and then we will be able to fully classify this race as the 7 drivers who took part. Here we go. Valentina comes across the line and takes her podium position. Congratulations. Just waiting for Santiago then. Ran out of fuel and then rejoined the race from the pit lane, and will take P7 in the end. What looked like a race victory was on the cards for Santiago after Andy and Mariano came together. Yeah, unfortunate end to the race for him. So let's get the classification and run down that full order before we head to the driver interviews. Mariano for Interlink France wins in 24 minutes 2 seconds 0.12 ahead of Andy for Strings. Once again, the gap only 1.7 seconds at the line. Then a quite large gap back to Valentina, nearly 2 minutes. Then it's Ian, William a lap down. Santiago and Eduardo both rejoining, and they finished a number of laps down in the end. But yeah, let's head over to the interview room and see who we have waiting for us. We have the 3 podium position drivers, and I think we're going to get a word with Mariano for Interlink France first of all. Mariano, that was quite some race.
Hey, yeah, yes, it was full of events there.
Yeah, so once again, you took a victory in Wayports Racing League, your 3rd of 3 in season 3. Surely after qualifying, you thought you were in trouble.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, against all odds, because I keep trying, to catch up but the pace is just, Andy is flying on the single lap. It's impossible to touch him in qualifying. So I was hoping, obviously for a clean, consistent race. I did have some mistakes. I was really upset right before the pits. I don't know really what happened there, but I can't believe, the outcome.
Yeah, that contact on I think it was 3 laps to go with Andy at turn 2. He ended up giving you the place back. What did you think of that? Do you think it was? Did you think it was Andy's fault?
I'm not sure. I would have to see it. I think that. So what happened was, I thought, I didn't. I didn't have the standings. I was looking at other things, so I didn't know who it was. I thought it was Santiago. I thought Andy was ahead and first. So I protect the inside, and so definitely I have to brake more because I'm on the inside, and I was really surprised. Maybe I was braking a little too much. I'm not sure. I have to take a look at it, but it really really surprised me. Andy just took that because he was also right behind me. He wasn't on the traditional line, but he took that really fast, and so there was contact. Right after that, it really threw me off. I didn't, I was pulling ahead, and it didn't feel good, and I was distracted, so I missed that turn, and that's why we were side to side on the straight before the main straight. That was crazy.
Yeah, so we saw that, and we saw Santiago gain on you a lot out of the final corner before you set your pit stop. And we think that if Santiago hadn't have run out of fuel after yours and Andy's coming together, Santiago could have won that race. What do you make of that?
Absolutely. Like I said, I thought it was Andy. I didn't know it was Santiago. I was like, well, Andy isn't first. As long as I can hold to second, I'm okay. And then I see that Santiago has this problem. I didn't know it was fuel. I can't believe it was fuel.
Yeah, it was fuel.
So he pulls to the side, and I understand that it was, well, obviously with the contact. I was like, why? How come is Andy hitting me? I was really confused. But yeah, it was definitely Santiago's race, it seemed.
Yeah, so Andy pitted quite early on. We were surprised by it. I think he was catching up to the back of Santiago and probably thought, you know what, I don't want to battle with my teammate. I'll get in the pit lane. And in the end, that was probably the better strategy. But yes, well done, Mariano, on another victory in Wayports Racing League. Hope to see you at the next one.
All right, thanks. Take care. See you.
Let's have a word with Andy. Andy for Strings. Unlucky once again, Andy. It seems, I don't know, I feel like a stuck record. What went wrong?
Yeah, everything was working fine. The qualifying, the practicing, everything was fine. And I was pushing too hard. I had the gap to Mariano. There was no problem. I had turn one and I just ran a little bit wide. I was just touching the gravel with the left rear wheel, and that obviously results in a complete spin. You can't catch that car. And okay, I was behind Mariano and I tried to do an undercut. And I was coming out of the pits with 2 or 3 laps, really fast laps, and I was coming out of the pits directly behind Mariano and with much more speed. And then came turn 2, and I was giving a hard push. I was going to the inside, and I was just pulled out of that turn and right into Mariano, who wanted to take that turn, of course, too, and turned in. So I wasn't sure where was the fault. Was it his? Was it mine? And if it was mine and I am in front and he's out of the race, I am to blame and I have that black-white flag. So I let him pass again. And the race was open, but I had that damaged car. I don't know about the damage of Mariano's car. And so to do a second place safely, I had to let him pass.
Yeah, very sporting in the end because we couldn't call it in the commentary box. We weren't quite sure. It happened so quickly and it was quite unexpected. We couldn't really caution blame, but fair enough for letting him through. You had to do the hard work. You did catch up right to the back of him, but a little bit of an error in the infield section where you cut one of the apexes a little bit. That kind of ended your race there. You've got to be pleased with pole position. You've got to be pleased with the fastest lap. 2 extra points in the bag. But once again, Mariano he has the consistency, it seems. And is that something you're going to try and work on ahead of round 4?
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to have the fastest lap. You don't have to be the fastest man in one lap. You have to be the fastest man in the complete race. You have the consistency of Mariano. When you look at that consistency, it's great. And I have to work on that. Yeah, absolutely.
So ahead of round 4, I'm sure we're going to be expecting similar practice numbers from you. And yeah, just need to get that race consistency a little bit in better shape. And hopefully we'll be interviewing you in a few weeks' time when you're on the top step.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Andy. See you next week.
See ya. Bye.
And finally, for her first podium in Wayports Racing League, it's Valentina. Welcome to the commentary box.
How are you?
Pretty good. You must feel pretty good with that result.
Yeah, I missed you guys. I haven't been interviewed in a while because I haven't been in the podium for a long time. Yeah, I want to say I was lucky, but to be honest, I don't know. I think I deserved it.
Well, certainly. You finished P3 on the road. You deserve to be there. You got a little bit fortunate with Santiago running out of fuel, but
Yeah.
there is a certain amount of luck involved in racing, and sometimes it goes your way.
Yeah, but I was twice. I think twice it was that I was last. So I was like, yeah, I didn't deserve to be last at all. And then yeah, I managed to get better. Obviously, I was lucky with Santiago running out of fuel. But I had contact. Well, I had contact with Eduardo twice, and that was what left me twice last during the race. So I'm happy I managed to improve. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly. I think we missed what happened at turn 1. I think it was you. Was it you and Ian who came together at turn 1 in the race?
I actually don't know because I don't know. I was like, he was behind me. Whoever it was that it hit me. He or she was behind. Well, he was behind, but I don't know. I thought it was Eduardo. I was not sure if it was Ian.
Okay, well, we'll have to watch it back and find out who exactly it was. Apologies if it wasn't you, Ian, but yeah, unfortunate start to the race. So clearly, you've got the pace. You've been improving all the time throughout the practice. How do you feel ahead of round 4? Do you think you can carry this momentum into the 4th round?
Well, I hope so. I know it depends a lot on luck on my side, I think, which is not the case with Mariano, Andy, or Santiago. They have the pace. They don't need that much luck. I think I do need them to fail at some point, or for me to be here. So I'm hoping that I will continue with this pace, and that luck will be with me.
Yeah,
on
well,
my-
certainly. If you watch the broadcast back, you'll see that it nearly happened today. Andy and Mariano had a big coming together at turn 2 towards the end of the race, and it could have been race over potentially, and you could have walked away with the win. But anyway,
Could have been.
we'll see in future rounds. Anything can happen here.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm very excited to see the coming races and how
Us
they.
too in the commentary box. Thank you very much, Valentina. Congrats on your first podium. I hope to see you here again.
Thank you. See you. Hopefully, yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Adam, that draws to a close the racing action today here from Wayports Racing League, Season 2. What do you think? It was a good one.
Yeah, I mean, a bit of a shame there were a couple less people on the grid than we have had in previous races, but that didn't take anything away from the racing. Yeah, it was very close there at the front, and made for some exciting stuff.
Absolutely, and yes, going into the next round, we have a story on our hands. Mariano has made it 3 from 3. Andy yet to win, even though his qualifying performance has been excellent. His pace in the race generally has been excellent. He's just not able to complete the laps as consistently as Mariano. We will see next weekend as we head to the next race on the calendar, round number 4 from Blackwood GP. We've been here plenty of times in Wayports Racing League before. The drivers will be very, very familiar with this track indeed. We hope to see you there, May 22nd at 2:00 UTC. From all of us here on the Wayports Racing League, we wish you a very good day. I've been Peter Butcher. I've been joined by Adam Brown in the commentary box. Have a good one. See you next time.
Goodbye.